Get your ghetto ass out of my hotel before I call the cops. Michael Thompson snatched the Black Centurion card from Monica Jameson's fingers and slammed it onto the marble floor. His polished Oxford ground down hard, twisting the card under his heel like a cigarette butt. "This is embarrassing for everyone," he sneered. "Take your fake card back." The clerk, Sarah, giggled. "Should I get the mop? That card probably has diseases on it." Monica's small suitcase rested by her feet. Her simple blazer and flats had apparently triggered every racist instinct in the room. The humiliation hit like a slap-sharp public deliberate. Heat rose in her chest, but she stood her ground. She'd survived hostile boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, yet here she was, reduced to a stereotype. Not because she lacked wealth or power, but because once again her skin spoke louder than her name. If you've ever been judged by your appearance, this story will change how you see justice. Keep watching. "Good evening," Monica said, her voice warm despite her exhaustion as she approached the reception desk. "I have a reservation under Jameson. Executive suite for tonight." The desk clerk, her nameplate read Sarah, didn't immediately look up from her screen. When she finally did, her smile was the kind of practiced expression that never quite reached the eyes. "Last name again?" "Jameson. Jameson. Monica spelled it out clearly, though she noticed Sarah's fingers moving slowly across the keyboard, as if the simple task of looking up a reservation required extraordinary effort. Sarah's brow furrowed as she stared at the screen. "I'm not seeing anything under that name. Are you sure you made the reservation at this hotel?" Monica felt the first flutter of unease. She'd stayed at Meridian Properties hundreds of times, and her assistant had confirmed this booking twice. "Yes, I'm certain. The confirmation number is 4827MJ Executive. I booked it 3 days ago." Sarah's typing became even more deliberate, each keystroke seeming to echo in the suddenly quiet lobby. A security guard near the entrance shifted his position, and Monica became aware that their conversation was beginning to draw attention from other staff members. "Ma'am, I'm really not finding anything." Sarah's tone had taken on a slight edge of impatience. "Could you have possibly booked this at one of our competitor hotels? Sometimes people get confused about which chain they're staying with." The suggestion hit Monica like a slap. In 20 years of business travel, she had never once gotten confused about her hotel bookings, but she maintained her composure, reaching into her purse for her phone. "Let me pull up the confirmation email." As Monica scrolled through her messages, she noticed Michael approaching from the office behind the desk. The night manager was a tall, thin man in his 30s, whose expensive suit couldn't quite mask the predatory way he assessed guests. His eyes locked onto Monica with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Is there a problem here?" Michael's voice carried the kind of authority that suggested he was used to problems being resolved quickly and quietly. "This guest claims she has a reservation," Sarah said, emphasizing the word claims in a way that made Monica's jaw tighten. "But I can't find anything in the system." Monica held up her phone, showing the confirmation email with the Meridian logo clearly visible. "Here's my confirmation. Room 2847, Executive Suite, paid in full." Michael glanced at the phone for perhaps 2 seconds before his expression hardened. "Ma'am, we're going to need to see some additional identification, and I'll need to verify your credit card has sufficient funds for a room of this caliber." The words hung in the air like poison. Monica had heard this song before, the careful coded language that hotels used when they wanted to humiliate guests they deemed unworthy. The request for additional identification and sufficient funds verification wasn't standard protocol. She knew because she'd written the protocols herself. "Of course," Monica replied, her voice steady as she placed her driver's license and Black American Express Centurion card on the marble counter. The card's weight made a soft thud that seemed to reverberate through the tension building around them. Michael picked up the license and held it up to the light. examining it with the kind of scrutiny typically reserved for suspected forgeries. Monica Elizabeth Jameson, he read aloud, making her full name sound somehow suspicious. And this address, where exactly is this neighborhood? The question was designed to probe her economic status, to determine if she belonged in their establishment. Monica felt her pulse quicken, but her voice remained level. It's in Lincoln Park. Michael's non-committal response spoke volumes. He turned his attention to the credit card, running his finger along its edges. This is quite an exclusive card. How long have you held this account? The question was inappropriate and invasive, but Monica answered anyway. 15 years. Sarah leaned forward, inserting herself back into the conversation. Sir, maybe we should call the credit card company to verify the account is in good standing. You know how these premium cards sometimes get misused. The implication was clear, and Monica felt heat rise in her chest. Around them, other guests had begun to notice the extended interaction at the front desk. A well-dressed white couple who had arrived after Monica were being checked in seamlessly by another clerk, their process taking less than 2 minutes. Michael studied the reservation on Sarah's screen, his expression growing more skeptical by the moment. Executive Suite, 2847. That's one of our premium accommodations. $800 per night. He looked up at Monica as if expecting her to flinch at the price. Are you traveling for business or pleasure? Business, Monica replied, though she knew the question was another probe, designed to assess whether she had legitimate reasons for occupying their premium real estate. And what type of business are you in? The question came from Sarah, who had apparently decided that customer privacy was less important than satisfying her curiosity about Monica's financial credentials. Monica paused. She could have ended this charade with 2 words. I'm the CEO. But something deeper was happening here, something that needed to play out. She was witnessing the casual discrimination that her employees felt comfortable displaying when they thought no one important was watching. Consulting, she said simply. Michael and Sarah exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Consulting could mean anything, and in their minds, it probably meant nothing at all. Monica quietly opened her phone and began recording, then sent a quick text to her executive assistant. Need you to monitor social media for Grand Meridian Chicago tonight. Something's happening. The response came back within seconds. On it. Everything okay? Monica typed back, about to find out. Michael straightened to his full height, his voice taking on the tone of someone who had made a decision. Ma'am, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here. The Grand Meridian caters to a very specific clientele, and our executive suites are reserved for our most distinguished guests. The words hit Monica like ice water. The specific clientele comment wasn't subtle. It was barely coded racism delivered with a smile. She glanced around the lobby and noticed that every guest in sight was white, well-dressed, and being treated with the deference she was being denied. I'm not sure what you're implying, Monica said, though she knew exactly what he was implying. Sarah leaned forward, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a helpful whisper. Look, there are some really nice hotels on the South Side that might be more suitable for your budget. The Hampton Inn has very reasonable rates. The suggestion that she belonged in a budget hotel on the South Side, the predominantly black section of Chicago, was delivered with such casual cruelty that Monica actually took a step back. The Hampton Inn comment wasn't about her budget. It was about her race. I have a confirmed reservation and a valid credit card, Monica said, her voice still controlled but with an edge that hadn't been there before. I'm not looking for hotel recommendations. Michael sighed dramatically, as if Monica's persistence was an inconvenience. Ma'am, I'm going to be frank with you. Sometimes people make reservations online that don't quite work out when they arrive. We have standards to maintain here. A few guests in the lobby had stopped their conversations entirely, some watching with barely concealed curiosity, others looking uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Monica noticed a young black bellhop near the elevators whose face was a mask of barely contained anger, but who couldn't risk his job by speaking up. "What standards would those be?" Monica asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Michael's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the ugliness beneath. "I think you know what I mean." Monica did know. She knew exactly what he meant. And in that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. She pulled out her phone again and opened her camera app, pointing it directly at Michael. "Could you repeat that last comment for the record?" "Ma'am, you need to put that phone away immediately," Michael said, his composure cracking. "We don't allow filming in our lobby." "Actually," Monica said, her voice gaining strength, "I'd like to know exactly what standards you're referring to. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your standards have more to do with the color of my skin than the color of my money." Sarah gasped audibly. Michael's face flushed red. And in the silence that followed, Monica quietly sent another message to her assistant. "Legal needs to be on standby. And make sure someone's monitoring all social platforms. This is about to get interesting." The lobby had gone dead quiet. Even the soft jazz music seemed to have stopped. Everyone was watching now, waiting to see what would happen next. Monica felt the weight of their attention, the judgment, the anticipation. These procedures seemed designed for one specific purpose, she thought. But did they have any idea who they were really dealing with? The tension in the lobby was now palpable, a living thing that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. Michael's face had taken on a dangerous red hue as he processed Monica's accusation, and Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. "Ma'am," Michael said, his voice now carrying open hostility, "I'm going to need you to lower your voice and put that phone away. You're creating a disturbance." Monica didn't lower her voice. "I'm creating a disturbance by asking to check into a room I've already paid for. You're creating a disturbance by making baseless accusations about our staff," Sarah interjected, her professional mask now completely abandoned. "We have every right to verify our guests' credentials." A well-dressed couple near the concierge desk had pulled out their own phones, sensing that something newsworthy was unfolding. Monica noticed the woman whispering urgently to her companion, "Are you getting this? This is insane." The security guard who had been stationed near the entrance was now walking toward them with purpose. He was a large white man in his 50s, whose hand rested casually on the radio clipped to his belt. His approach sent a chill through Monica that had nothing to do with the hotel's air conditioning. "Ma'am," the security guard said as he reached the reception desk, "I'm going to need you to come with me." "Why?" Monica asked, though she already knew the answer. "You're trespassing." The word hit the lobby like a thunderclap. Trespassing, in her own hotel. The irony was so bitter, Monica almost laughed. Michael stepped forward, emboldened by the security guard's presence. "We've asked you multiple times to leave and you've refused. We have the right to refuse service to anyone." "Based on what?" Monica demanded. "Based on your disruptive behavior and your inability to provide satisfactory proof of your ability to pay for our accommodations." The lie was so blatant, so outrageous, that several guests audibly scoffed. Monica's credit card was sitting right there on the counter, a card that had no preset spending limit and could have purchased the entire hotel. The situation was escalating beyond even Monica's expectations. She had thought she might encounter some subtle discrimination, the kind of coded language and delayed service that people of color faced daily. She hadn't expected to be physically threatened with removal from her own property. The live streams had started. Monica could see at least 3 phones now pointed in her direction, their owners broadcasting the confrontation to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtags were already forming. Hashtag racism at the Grand, Hashtag discrimination caught, hashtag black woman denied. On her own phone, notifications were starting to flood in. Her assistant was sending rapid-fire updates, video going viral already. Over 50,000 views in 2 minutes. News outlets picking it up. "What's your play?" Monica typed back quickly. "Let it run. Document everything." "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again," the security guard said, his hand now openly resting on his radio. "You need to leave these premises immediately, or I'll be forced to call the police." The threat of police involvement sent a visible shudder through the crowd. Everyone in America knew what could happen when police were called on a black person for the crime of existing in a space where they weren't wanted. But Monica didn't move. She couldn't move. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about every black person who had ever been made to feel unwelcome in spaces they had every right to occupy. This was about every subtle slight, every coded comment, every time someone had been made to feel less than human because of the color of their skin. "Call them," Monica said quietly. "Call the police. Let's see what happens when they get here." The challenge hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Michael looked uncertain for the first time, perhaps realizing that the viral videos now recording every word meant that whatever happened next would be scrutinized by millions of people. Duty manager James had appeared from the back office, drawn by the commotion. He was a man in his 40s with thinning hair and the kind of middle management swagger that suggested he took pleasure in wielding what little authority he had been given. "What's the situation here?" James demanded, though the question was directed at Michael, not Monica. "This woman is refusing to leave after we've explained that we can't accommodate her," Michael said. "She's become belligerent and is now filming our staff without permission." James looked at Monica with undisguised contempt. "Ma'am, you have 30 seconds to collect your belongings and exit this hotel, or we will have you arrested for trespassing." The countdown had begun. Around the lobby, guests were openly staring now, their phones capturing every second of what was becoming a masterclass in institutional racism. The comments on the live streams were flooding in faster than anyone could read them, a mixture of outrage, support, and unfortunately, some approval for the hotel's actions. Monica's phone buzzed with another message from her assistant. "Corporate legal is on standby. Security team is en route. Police scanners show units being dispatched to your location. Whatever you're planning, now might be the time." Monica looked around the lobby at the faces staring back at her. Some showed sympathy, others curiosity. A few displayed the kind of uncomfortable recognition that came from witnessing something they knew was wrong but felt powerless to stop. She thought about her grandmother, who had lived through segregation and the civil rights movement. She thought about all the battles fought and won, and all the battles that apparently still needed to be fought. And then she thought about the power that these people couldn't even imagine, and she made her decision. "Before you call anyone," Monica said, her voice carrying across the now silent lobby, "there's something you should know." The lobby fell into absolute silence. Even the ambient music seemed to have stopped, as if the entire hotel was holding its breath. Monica stood at the center of the marble-floored space, surrounded by hotel staff who had no idea they were about to experience the shock of their careers. Monica's phone rang, cutting through the tension. She glanced at the screen and smiled for the first time all evening. "Perfect timing," she murmured, then answered the call and put it on speaker. "Miss Jameson?" The voice that filled the lobby was crisp, professional, and unmistakably that of someone in authority. "This is Janet Mitchell from Corporate Security. We've been monitoring the social media activity related to your location. Are you safe?" The color drained from Michael's face. Sarah took an unconscious step backward. Even the security guard's hand fell away from his radio. "I'm fine, Janet," Monica replied, her voice now carrying a tone of authority that hadn't been there before. "But I think we need to have a conversation about the training protocols at this location." General Manager Richard Pierce came running into the lobby from the back offices, still in his pajamas with a hotel robe thrown over them. His face was a mask of panic as he spotted Monica, his eyes darting between her and his nightstaff with growing horror. "Miss Jameson," Richard gasped, out of breath from his rundown from the residential floors. I had no idea you were. The monitoring system showed unusual activity and—" He looked around at his staff, all of whom were now staring at him in confusion. "I am so deeply sorry. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Monica looked at Richard calmly. "Has there been a misunderstanding, Richard? Or has there been a very clear demonstration of how this hotel treats black guests when management isn't watching?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. Michael had gone completely pale, the reality of the situation beginning to dawn on him. James stood frozen, his brain apparently unable to process the rapid reversal of power dynamics. "I'd like to introduce myself properly," Monica said, her voice now carrying to every corner of the lobby. "I'm Monica Elizabeth Jameson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Hotel Group, and I own this hotel." The words hit the assembled crowd like a physical force. Gasps echoed throughout the lobby. Several guests began applauding, while others simply stared in shock. The live streams exploded with comments as viewers realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Monica's phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. "Corporate communications team is ready with statements. Legal has reviewed the footage. News outlets are requesting interviews. You're trending nationwide." Monica looked directly at Michael, then at Sarah, then at James. "For the past 20 minutes, you've treated me with a level of disrespect and discrimination that should be unthinkable in any establishment, but especially in one that bears my name." Michael finally found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Ms. Jameson, we didn't know. If we had known who you were—" "But that's exactly the point," Monica interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. "You didn't know who I was, so you felt comfortable treating me like I was less than human. The question isn't how you treat the CEO when she walks through your doors. The question is how you treat every guest who walks through your doors." The security guard who had threatened to have her arrested was now backing away slowly, as if trying to disappear into the marble walls. Sarah was crying silently, her career undoubtedly flashing before her eyes. Richard Pierce was frantically trying to salvage the situation. "Miss Jameson, please, if we could discuss this privately." "No, Richard," Monica said firmly. "This conversation happens here, in front of everyone, because everyone needs to understand that what happened here tonight is not acceptable. It will never be acceptable, and it will never happen again." The lobby erupted in another round of applause, this time sustained and heartfelt. Guests were openly cheering, their phones capturing every second of what had become a masterclass in justice served. Monica's phone rang again. This time it was her assistant calling via video chat, and Monica accepted the call, turning the phone so that the camera could see the assembled crowd. "The board is watching," her assistant said from the screen. "They've asked me to confirm your identity for anyone who needs verification." Monica smiled grimly. "That won't be necessary. I think everyone here understands the situation now." She ended the call and looked around the lobby one more time. The power had shifted completely now. Where moments before she had been treated as an unwelcome intruder, she was now obviously the most important person in the building. "This isn't about revenge," Monica said, her voice carrying to every corner of the marble-floored space. "This is about change. Real change. The kind of change that ensures no one else ever has to experience what I experienced tonight." And with those words, Monica Jameson transformed from victim to victor, from outsider to the ultimate insider. The woman who had been denied a room in her own hotel was about to remake the entire culture of her company. Monica stood in the center of her hotel lobby, the weight of her authority now undeniable. The transformation was complete. The tired traveler had become the commanding executive, and everyone in the building could feel the shift in power. "Richard," Monica said, her voice cutting through the silence, "please call an emergency meeting of all night shift supervisory staff. Now." Richard Pierce nodded frantically, pulling out his phone to make the calls. Around the lobby, guests were still recording, their devices capturing every moment of what had become a historic confrontation. Within minutes, the senior night staff had assembled in the lobby's seating area. Monica could see the confusion and growing panic in their faces as they began to understand the magnitude of their situation. "Sarah Martinez," Monica said, reading from her phone where her assistant had already pulled up personnel files. "6 months with the company. 2 previous complaints about discriminatory behavior that were apparently ignored." She looked up at Sarah, who was now openly sobbing. "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building." Sarah's legs gave out and she sank into one of the lobby chairs. "Please," she whispered, "I have student loans. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you suggested I stay at a Hampton Inn because of the color of my skin," Monica replied without emotion. Michael was next. Michael Thompson, 3 years with Meridian, night manager who just threatened to have the owner of his hotel arrested for trespassing. Monica's voice was steady, but everyone could hear the steel beneath it. "You're also terminated. Clear out your office tonight." Michael didn't say anything. He simply stood there, his career crumbling in real time as millions of people watched online. James, the duty manager who had delivered the 30-second ultimatum, was shifting nervously from foot to foot. He knew he was next. "James Rodriguez," Monica continued, "you gave me 30 seconds to leave my own hotel or face arrest. Your employment with Meridian Hotel Group is also terminated, effective immediately. The security guard who had threatened to call the police had already quietly disappeared, apparently hoping he could avoid the purge." But Monica wasn't finished. "The security officer who threatened me, I want his employment terminated as well, and I want a full review of all security protocols company-wide." Richard Pierce was taking notes frantically, his hands shaking as he tried to keep up with Monica's decisions. Corporate Communications had issued a statement within the hour. Monica's assistant read it aloud during another video call. "Meridian Hotel Group has 0 tolerance for discrimination of any kind. Following a thorough investigation of tonight's events at our Chicago location, several employees have been terminated. We are implementing immediate reforms to ensure this never happens again." The live streams were now reaching millions of viewers. Comments poured in from around the world, with overwhelming support for Monica's actions. The hashtag Justice at the Meridian was trending globally. Local news crews were arriving outside the hotel, their satellite trucks lining the street. Inside, guests were openly celebrating what they had witnessed, a real-time demonstration of accountability that few had ever seen in corporate America. Monica addressed the remaining staff, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just reminded everyone exactly who was in charge. What happened here tonight was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a culture that has allowed discrimination to flourish in shadows. That culture ends tonight. She announced immediate implementation of comprehensive bias training for all staff, company-wide. She established a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, with direct reporting lines to corporate that bypassed local management. She mandated diversity audits at every property. The 3 terminated employees were escorted from the building by different security officers than the one who had threatened Monica earlier. As they left, some of the guests actually applauded, though Monica gestured for quiet. "This isn't about celebrating anyone's downfall," she said. "This is about ensuring that every guest who walks through our doors, regardless of their race, their clothing, or their appearance, receives the respect and dignity they deserve." The footage of the confrontation and its aftermath was being shared across every social media platform. News outlets were calling it a watershed moment in corporate accountability. Business schools would study this case for years to come. Monica's phone was buzzing constantly with interview requests, speaking opportunities, and messages of support from across the country. But she ignored most of them, focused on the work that still needed to be done. As the terminated employees were escorted out and the immediate crisis began to subside, Monica found herself standing in the lobby of her hotel, truly her hotel now, in a way it had never been before. The guests were dispersing, many stopping to shake her hand or offer words of support before heading to their rooms. Monica addressed the remaining crowd, her voice carrying the weight of experience and hard-won wisdom. What you witnessed tonight wasn't supposed to happen. Not in 2024, not in America, not anywhere. But it did happen. And that tells us something important about the work we still have to do. She paused, looking around at the faces of the people who had stayed to listen: hotel staff, guests, and the few remaining journalists who were documenting every word. I didn't reveal my identity tonight to prove my power, Monica continued. I revealed it because silence in the face of injustice is complicity, and I refuse to be complicit in a system that treats people as less than human based on their appearance. A young black woman from the crowd stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. Ms. Jameson, thank you. My daughter is watching this live stream right now. She needed to see this. Monica nodded, understanding the weight of that statement. Representation mattered. Seeing people who looked like you in positions of power fighting back against discrimination mattered in ways that couldn't be measured. I grew up in a household where my grandmother told me stories about hotels that wouldn't serve black people, Monica said. She lived through segregation, through the civil rights movement, through decades of fighting for the basic dignity of being treated as equal human beings. Tonight reminded me that some of those fights aren't over. She pulled out her phone and showed a photo of her grandmother to the crowd. Dorothy Jameson cleaned hotel rooms for 40 years. She would have been so proud to know that her granddaughter owns hotel chains now. But she would have been heartbroken to see that I still had to fight for basic respect in my own lobby. The emotional weight of the moment settled over everyone present. This wasn't just about corporate policy or business practices. This was about the generational trauma of discrimination and the ongoing fight for equality. Success doesn't insulate you from racism, Monica said. Position doesn't protect you from prejudice. Tonight proved that, but tonight also proved something else, that we have the power to demand better. We have the power to create change. Monica's assistant appeared at her side, whispering updates about the media attention and the corporate response. The story was being covered by every major news outlet. The stock price of Meridian Hotel Group was actually rising as investors responded positively to the company's swift action. The real work starts tomorrow, Monica told the crowd. Tonight was about accountability. Tomorrow is about transformation. We're going to rebuild the culture of this company from the ground up, and we're going to make sure that every employee understands that discrimination isn't just wrong. It's incompatible with our values. Some of the hotel staff who remained were openly crying, moved by both the gravity of what had happened and the hope for what could come next. Monica made sure to shake hands with each of them, looking them in the eyes and reminding them that they were part of the solution. As the crowd finally began to disperse, Monica stood alone in her lobby for the first time all evening. The marble floors gleamed under the chandelier light. The fresh orchids still perfumed the air, and everything looked exactly the same as it had when she first walked in. But everything had changed. In the span of a few hours, a routine hotel check-in had become a national conversation about race, power, and justice. A tired business traveler had become a symbol of resistance. A moment of discrimination had become a catalyst for transformation. Monica finally felt the exhaustion of the long day settling into her bones, but it was a different kind of tired now, the good tired that came from fighting the right fight and winning. Monica stood in the now quiet lobby, her voice carrying to the remaining guests and the millions watching online through various live streams that were still broadcasting. The moment had taken on a weight that extended far beyond the marble walls of the Grand Meridian. "What happened here tonight happens everywhere," Monica said, her words simple but powerful. "In hotels, in restaurants, in stores, in office buildings. Discrimination doesn't disappear just because we don't want to see it. It hides in plain sight, waiting for moments when people think no one important is watching." She held up her phone, showing the flood of messages and comments that continued to pour in from around the world. But people are watching. People are recording. People are bearing witness. And that changes everything. A middle-aged black man in the crowd called out, "What can we do? How do we make sure this doesn't happen to our kids?" Monica smiled at the question. "Document it. Report it. Don't stay silent when you see injustice. Your voice has power, especially when you feel powerless." She gestured to the phones that had captured every moment of the evening's confrontation. "These devices in your pockets are more powerful than any weapon in the civil rights arsenal. Use them. When you see discrimination, document it. When you witness injustice, record it. When you encounter businesses that demonstrate inclusive practices, support them with your dollars." Monica's assistant approached with a tablet showing the real-time social media analytics. The hashtags related to the evening's events were trending in over 40 countries. The video had been shared more than 1 million times in the past hour alone. "Your dollar is your vote," Monica continued. "Choose wisely. Support businesses that demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, that they value equality and dignity for all customers." A young white woman raised her hand. "Ms. Jameson, how do we know if a business really practices what they preach?" "Watch how they treat people when they think no one is looking," Monica replied. "Pay attention to their hiring practices, their leadership diversity, their response to complaints. True inclusion isn't a marketing strategy, it's a way of being." Monica looked around the lobby one more time, taking in the faces of the people who had witnessed this transformation. "I'm going to do something unprecedented in the hospitality industry. Every Meridian property will now have mandatory monthly bias training led by external consultants. Every property will have diverse hiring requirements for management positions, and every property will have an anonymous reporting system that reports directly to my office." The announcement drew applause from the remaining crowd. These weren't just policy changes, they were a complete reimagining of how a major corporation could address systemic discrimination. "But real change doesn't happen in corporate boardrooms," Monica said. "It happens in daily interactions. It happens when each of us chooses to stand up instead of staying silent. It happens when we decide that someone else's dignity is worth defending." As if choreographed by fate, the elevator doors opened, and a bellhop emerged with a key card on a silver tray. He approached Monica with a mixture of respect and awe. "Ms. Jameson," he said, "your suite is ready." Monica took the key card, the same key card she should have received when she first arrived hours ago. She held it up for the cameras that were still recording. "Executive Suite 2847, she said with a smile that held no bitterness, only determination. "I'm finally checking in." The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who had been denied a room in her own hotel was finally getting her key. But more importantly, she had used her experience to unlock something much more valuable. A conversation about justice that would continue long after she went to sleep. As Monica walked toward the elevators, she turned back one final time. "Remember tonight," she said. "Remember that dignity isn't negotiable. Remember that your voice matters. And remember that change is possible, but only if we're willing to fight for it." The elevator doors closed behind her, but the impact of the evening was just beginning. Within hours, the phrase "dignity isn't negotiable" was being printed on T-shirts, shared on social media, and adopted by civil rights organizations around the world. Monica's story sparked a nationwide conversation about discrimination in the hospitality industry and beyond. Business schools added her case to their curricula. Other companies began examining their own practices more critically, and countless individuals found the courage to speak up when they encountered injustice. The woman who had been denied a room at her own hotel had given the world something much more valuable than a viral video. She had given them a blueprint for turning moments of discrimination into catalysts for lasting change. As the lobby finally emptied and the last live stream ended, the words, "Dignity isn't negotiable, #stand for equality," remained on screens around the world. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin with a single person refusing to accept what should never have been acceptable in the first place.